I feel uncomfortable being here in proximity to it. It's not a good feeling.
Peter Hamer was one of dozens of students sexually abused by teachers at this Ottawa school. He hasn't been back to Bell High in years.
I remember standing back here because this was the office he used, and he called me to the office.
In the 1980s, Hamer's music teacher Bob Clark touched him, asked him to take naked pictures of him, and masturbated in front of him. Clark asked Hamer if he'd keep it secret.
After he had exposed himself, it was the next day. He said, "You gonna tell anybody?" I said, "No, I'm not telling anybody." And he said, "Okay, good." And he was standing right there.
But in 1986, Hamer did tell someone, the school's principal. The next term, Clark was moved to another school. But CBC News has uncovered Clark wasn't the only problem teacher that was moved. Don Grenham was a basketball coach at Bell High in the mid-1970s and early 80s. During that time, Madeline Glaus heard Grenham was molesting students, including her son.
He used to squeeze their genital.
Glaus went to a principal and the school board, but administrators did nothing. It was only after a victim of a third teacher came forward that the secrets started to come out.
Now there's a bunch of us, and it's heartbreaking that there's a bunch of us.
2 years ago, Lori Howitt pressed sexual assault charges against her former Bell music teacher, Tim Stanitz. The incident started when she was 16 years old.
Looking back on it now, I can see how he used grooming and manipulation, and I can see that clearly now, and it makes me sick.
Stanitz was the music teacher who had replaced Bob Clark at the school. Within weeks of charges being laid against Stanitz, other former students came forward to lay charges against Clark and Grenham. Grenham's charges involved 22 former students, but he died before his trial. So did Stanitz. Of the three, only Bob Clark was convicted. Now his victims want answers.
Mark.
How are you?
How are you?
Good to see you.
Nice to see you. Come in.
Mark Leach was also abused by Clark. It happened after Peter Hamer complained, after Clark was transferred out of Bell and over to another local high school.
Knowing what I know now, I feel like they purposely put students in a vulnerable position by putting us in a room with that guy. To know that a guy has a certain type of behavior like that and to put him in the room with more kids is like, it's unbelievable.
And the guilt still haunts Peter Hamer. He asked for Clark to leave Bell, and Clark then ended up groping Mark Leach, and his replacement went on to sexually assault Lori Howitt and another teenage girl.
So my piece of it didn't help in any way, and it's taken a lot of therapy to figure out that it wasn't really my responsibility, but that's how I felt at the time.
In a statement, the Ottawa Carleton District School Board says given the passage of time, it has no plans to open up investigations into these historical cases of sexual abuse. But it says it reviewed employee files to see if anything could have been done differently in these cases and fully cooperated with police investigations. It said abuse should never happen, especially not to a child and not at a school. Julie Ireton, CBC News, Ottawa.